one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment. Did you capture it? Or just let it slip?
All right, it is finally here. The OMFL offseason has begun. Welcome to the show. Win, how are you?
I'm okay, I reckon.
You saying reckon a lot tonight. Must be the Mississippi starting to wear off on you.
It happens from time to time.
And our other trusty co-host, W. Dunn, is on mute tonight, mainly because his house sounds like a zoo right now, and his daughter is not going to sleep. So he will be in the chat and be probably giving us his thoughts as we kind of move along here. So a lot has happened since the last time we had a show. We had the holidays and the playoffs flew by, record time. They are done. They are over, and we have crowned a new champion.
Yep. D-Money managed to win a 13-0 Super Bowl victory over the New York Football Jets.
Right. And done it in a surprising fashion for D-Money. Usually he's all about the offense, but he actually did it with his defense this time. Had some really good games with Dave, and it was a great playoff to sit back and watch. It did not go the way a lot of us expected it to go, but it was interesting to watch, and I, for one, am glad the offseason is here and gives us a whole lot to talk about. So let's just go ahead and let's just jump right into it and take a look at how the offseason came about and how things actually played out. I guess one of the biggest surprises that we had was the Broncos, your team, actually not making the playoffs. KO actually came through with his team and won his final game and actually snuck in the playoffs and left your team out in the cold.
Well, if it was a shock to no one, it was not a shock to me. I mean, you can't lose 3 straight. You can't lose to teams that you should beat in Detroit and Green Bay, and you can't leave it up to the CPU to win you a game at the end. So, my own fault.
It was a tough break, and those were tough games to lose, especially coming. You knew that last game was going to be a CPU game, but either way, it was a successful season for the Broncos, and it'll be a fun team to watch as they make another run this year. So let's just jump into it with the teams that did make it. The Patriots were visiting the commish and his Raiders. This game was televised on OMFL TV. It was actually a pretty fun game to watch, and the Raiders actually sneak away with a 2-point victory. This game was really interesting to watch as it kind of progressed and unfolded. The Raiders jumped out early. Patriots made a nice little comeback. This one was about Darren McFadden just eating the ball and running it and getting those tough yards, 25 carries, 93 yards. Tom Brady actually played really well, only 185 yards, but he did get a touchdown. It was his running game. There was no running game for the Patriots. The Raiders played amazing defense throughout, and it was actually a really good defensive game. And it sounds like I lost somebody here. Oh, no, we had somebody join us in Lewis. So give me your thoughts, Win, on this Raiders-Patriots game.
Well, I didn't get to watch any of it, unfortunately. I was busy doing some other stuff, so I didn't get a chance to observe this game. But from what I understand, the Raiders did everything they could to try and give it away, but the Patriots just didn't want to take it. And I got to agree with you. You got to have a run game in the playoffs, and apparently the Patriots forgot that.
It's tough to lose a 2-point game, especially on the road. But the Patriots have a good season, just not quite enough to make something happen. The next game up on the docket is our good friend to the show, Cali Buck, actually getting blown out on the road as he goes and faces Pepper. Pepper missed a bunch of games right here as the season came to an end. And he actually gets blown out. I'm sorry, I'm a little taken back for whatever reason. Whenever you type, your mic is picking that up super, super loud. I don't know if you can just turn that mic down just a little bit. But here we got the Bucs getting blown out by the Giants. The Giants missed a lot of ball games right there at the end of the season, but they come through with a very hefty win, 5 takeaways for that vaunted Giants defense. Mike Glennon All 5 picks came from him. Just had an absolute terrible day. Goes back to the running game. Doug Martin, 12 carries for 2 yards. The Giants just played amazing defense. They didn't really do too much on offense themselves because the Buccaneers are really known for their defense. But anytime you turn the ball over 5 times, you're just not going to win, especially on the road facing one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah, you pretty much said it all. 5 turnovers will do you in no matter who you're playing. You could play the team with 0 wins and you'll give them a win.
Yep. You just cannot do it, Callie. We expect more from you. We expect better from you. He is pretty much revamping his team. It'll be a interesting team to watch this year to see if he can match the success that he had from this past year, especially for a team that was known for being in the playoffs. Next game up is the Chiefs facing the surging and surprising Steelers. The Chiefs actually had a better record, but they had to go on the road to face the Steelers, who made a really good run at the end. This was another fun game to watch. This game came down to all the defense on both teams. Both teams played really good defense. Neither running back could get going. Neither quarterback could play very well. But when Tyler Bray actually passes for 139 yards and Ben Roethlisberger passes for under 100, it's going to be a pretty tough game to win. So this one was all about the defense, and the Chiefs just had the better defense on this day.
Yeah, got to agree with you on that one. Tyler Bray, he is painful to watch at times, but you know what? In this case, he actually was the better man here over Ben Roethlisberger, who just can't throw 3 picks, and Jeremy needs to send a game ball to Sean Smith for that game. 2 interceptions.
Yep, and it would be fun to see, do the Chiefs stick with what they had in Tyler, or did they kind of say that experiment is over and move on from there? Tyler definitely needs some work. He's got to work on turning over the ball if that team's going to make a run. Next game was a CPU game. The 49ers blow out the Packers. For the first few minutes, the Packers actually scored first and played some really good defense, and I thought maybe that they could upset Gaddy and his 49ers, but it just wasn't going to happen. The computer just is not good enough. So the 49ers blow out the Packers in the CPU game since that owner was out. Who is the owner for the Packers anyway?
At this point, it is Duval.
That's right. Duval is back, the ex-Texans owner. And anyway, he had to be out of town, and so there you have it. Your Raiders, your Giants, your Chiefs, and your 49ers all move on to the divisional round, which happened actually the very next day. The 49ers had to travel to face the division-winning Rams. I think the Rams actually beat them 3 times this year. The Raiders had to hit the road to face the Jets. The Giants had to hit the road to face the New Orleans Saints. And then the Chiefs had to hit the road to face the Texans. And these were some really interesting games that I didn't expect to turn out the way that they did. The Rams with a huge victory over Gaddy and his 49ers. I didn't get to watch this game at all, but I guess it comes down to both quarterbacks. Colin Kaepernick did not play well this season. He has actually been shipped on. We'll talk about that in a little bit later. But Ryan Mallett has the better game, 15-20, 250 and a touchdown. And neither team got a whole lot of running game, but it looks like the Rams just ate the clock, ran the ball effective enough to eat some clock down. They got Zach Stacy back, which was a big boost for their team, and they played some really good defense, harassing Kaepernick. 2 forced fumbles, an interception, and 7 sacks. Excuse me. So Robert Quinn was actually all over him with 3 sacks on the day. And the Rams get a big victory at home against the 49ers.
Big thing you need to give a nice game ball to Greg the Leg Zerline, kicking 5 field goals in that 29-7 victory.
Yep. Got to give it to the Rams. They stuck to their plan, and it worked. Next game up is going to be the Raiders dropping to the Jets. I didn't get to watch this game either, and this one was actually a shocker to me. I felt like the Raiders were playing really good defense. So were the Jets. I just felt like the Raiders had a little bit more that they brought to the table. Derek Carr and Geno Smith both struggled, both passed for 119 yards, both threw interceptions. Darren McFadden had a really good day, 21 for 97. Problem is he couldn't punch it in, whereas Chris Ivory and Johnson didn't do much better, 16 for 67 and 6 for 12. This game was just about the defense. This is just an old-fashioned. I think this game was actually played in the snow, and the Raiders had white jerseys on. That's not a good combination whenever you're playing in the snow. Just an old-fashioned smash mouth. Put your foot in the dirt, or in the snow in this case, and go at it. And the Jets get a huge victory to beat the Raiders.
Yeah, I kind of heard about this one after the fact. Basically, Dunn was driving late, apparently threw a pick while he was in field goal range, so that really hurts late in the game.
Yeah, you can't do that. Not in the road. Derek Carr has played pretty well this season, but you're going to have those growing pains, and that was a tough mistake to make. And that's just a tough game to lose. On the road, in the snow, white jerseys, white on white, and then you throw a late pick against a really good defensive team. Next game up is the Giants dropping by a touchdown to the Saints. This is another game I didn't know how to call it. My heart was pulling for Dave and the Saints to make a run, but it really felt like the Giants were the better team all season long. The Saints actually get 4 takeaways. They pick off Brock Osweiler 3 times. Michael actually had a decent game, 16 for 61. You'd like to see him get a couple more carries. This just goes back to actually seeing a comment. I get to watch this game. I did see a comment that Pepper made that Dave just lulls everyone to sleep with his offense. 26 carries for Darren Sproles, 107 yards, a long of 15. That's what Dave does. He just kind of lulls you to sleep. Drew Brees doesn't turn the ball over. They're going to play really good defense. As you can see, the defense for the Saints didn't get a lot of tackles. They get to 3 interceptions and 2 forced fumbles, 2 sacks, and that pays off big time. Paris Harrelson, 5 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. He's actually now in Oakland. I think that's going to be a big loss for the Saints. I know he's getting older. He's losing some. He's losing a step or two. This was a nice win for the Saints and brings a very successful Giants season to an end.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on that one. The big thing about Dave's offense is not that it lulls you to sleep. It's just that he just keeps matriculating the ball down the field. He gets 3 and 4 yards on every play, and he just kind of keeps those drives rolling, and you get frustrated trying to stop it after a while.
Yeah, I've watched him play. I did get to watch his NFC Championship game that we'll cover in a little bit. That's what he does. He sticks to a plan, and he's not going to deviate. He's not going to change. He's either going to lose and run out of time, or he's going to just eat the clock and you're going to run out of time. But he's not going to give it to you. He's going to make you earn it. Next game up is the Chiefs winning big against the Texans. I did not see this coming. I thought Jeremy's had a very good season, but the Texans had quietly put together a strong follow-up to their championship. I really expected them to make a run and possibly win another one, but 6 takeaways for your Chiefs defense. Tom Savage struggled. Talk about a quarterback who struggled all year long. We were talking about Tyler Bray earlier. Tom Savage struggles again. He's 13 or 33 with 6 interceptions. Tyler Bray, 6 for 7. I guess that's a great way to not turn the ball over. Just don't pass it. Jamal Charles, 29 carries for 72 yards. Commish, please do something about these fatigue sliders. But the Chiefs get the blowout victory against the Texans. They were all over Savage today. It looks like 3 sacks, the 6 interceptions, lots of tackles, lots of players on plays, and the Texans had 0 answers for the Chiefs today.
Well, that's the big thing about Emo. If you push him off of his game of running the ball, he can't really do much anything in the passing game. He's got to get a wide receiver that he can depend on.
Yeah, 8 carries for Trent Richardson, the guy who led the league in carries. I'm pretty sure he did. He actually won the MVP in the game. The MVP's got to get more than 8 touches. You can't pass the ball 33 times with Tom Savage. You just can't do it. He needs way more work. I don't know what happened here to Emo. It would have been great to get him on the show and find out what exactly happened. But clearly he was knocked off his game. And there you have it. The Rams, the Jets, the Saints, and the Chiefs, all with victories. The home team was strong this week, and it looks like they all came. Sorry, I had to mute a couple of these guys as they come in because I don't think they understand their mics are non-muted when they get in here, and that brings a lot of noise. If you guys want to talk, please feel free to jump in. Just type in the chat. We'll get you in here. We're going to move to the conference championship games. You got your Chiefs on the road to face the Jets. 12-4 for the Chiefs, 12-3-1 for the Jets, and the Saints at 12-4 to face the 12-4 Rams. The Rams are just a weird team. I didn't expect them to make it this far. A great team, just didn't expect them to get here. The Jets you did expect. The Saints we all hoped for. I think the Chiefs are another surprise team. Really, really good owner. Multiple championships underneath his belt. Just didn't expect them to come this far. And we're going to take a look at these games. So the Chiefs get blown out on the road against the Jets. 2 takeaways for the Jets, 2 turnovers for the Chiefs. This game came down to Geno Smith playing extremely well, 15-21, 197 and a touchdown, and Chris Ivory taking over the game. It'd be interesting to see what he does this season. He's a weird running back. We were going to catch up with free agents in a little bit, but I know he did hit the market. But Chris Ivory, 12 rushes for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, a long of 9. So that means he's just getting 3 yards in a pile of dust. And this was all about the Jets defense. They sack him 4 times, Tyler Bray 4 times. They pick him off once, and then 3 forced fumbles. That's tough to swallow, especially in the championship game.
I got to agree with you. And Jeremy kind of got behind the 8 ball early. I watched most of this game. Jay got behind the 8 ball early. Tyler Bray actually didn't have a bad game. I know he only threw for a little under 50% completion percentage, but he was hitting his marks pretty well whenever he could hit them. The problem is that the Jets took a page out of the Dave playbook. They were running 4 or 5 yard plays at a time, just getting those first downs and just keep the ball and keep it moving. And Jeremy just had no answer for it. He couldn't get Charles going, and that just pretty much killed any chance of him making a comeback.
It's just interesting to see that Chris Johnson only had 4 carries. Usually that's a 2-headed monster there, but Chris Ivory had the hot hand, and they rode him all the way to the OMFL Bowl, which is actually going to be our next game that we talk about, the NFC Championship game. I did get to catch this game actually in between, I think, a New Year's Eve nap that I had it on. The Saints fall by 4, 10-14. This game is all about the defense and just that typical Saints offense. 19 carries for Darren Sproles. Drew Brees struggled today. He was not on the mark. It was the Saints defense that kept him in this game. Zach Stacy trying to take a page from everyone else. 23 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown. Ryan Mallett did not play very well, but his team did get the win. This was all about the defense. 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, and a sack from the Rams defense. Kenny Vaccaro, I watched him. He had an amazing interception to give the ball back to the Saints. They just kind of ran out of time. They were making a drive late. Then Drew just made a terrible mistake, and McDonald picked him off. I don't know what Dave was trying to do, but tried to hit like a post route, and McDonald was all over it, ate it up. The Rams get a huge victory as they get into another OMFL Bowl.
I also like the way that he spread the ball around on the Rams side. You've got 7 different receivers involved. That's a recipe for success if you can keep the defense guessing as to who you're going to throw to.
Yep, that's the way you got to do it. You got to not turn the ball over and eat the clock, and that's exactly what the Rams did. So there you have it. That is your conference championships. The Jets and the Rams, both home dogs here, are going to go to the Super Bowl. And this game did not turn out the way I expected it at all. The Rams, with the 13-0 victory, I only got to see bits and pieces of this game, but the Rams finally get his 2nd Super Bowl ring after many Super Bowl appearances, and D-Money comes away with the victory. It looks like no stats got recorded for this game for whatever reason. I do remember watching some of it, though, and this game was all about the defense. The Rams just played spectacular defense. Zach Stacy did just enough to get the win, and the Rams and D-Money get his 2nd championship.
I watched part of this game too, and I think both teams played really good defensively. It's just the Rams just managed to squeak by enough to get a touchdown, I think midway through the 2nd quarter, and then got a couple of field goals from Greg Zuerlein. late kind of ice it, and Geno and the Jets just had to press too much, and they just couldn't overcome the Rams' D.
Yeah, Geno had his ups and downs this past season. But you know what? Overall, he played very well. He played good enough to get his team in there. And so you got to give him that. For whatever reason, though, he seemed to those ups and downs carried on into the season, and just didn't work out for him. The Rams get a huge victory, and they get their second championship. And you know what? Proud of him. At least I don't feel so bad about losing twice to him. He can no longer be labeled the regular season champion, and now he's got another bowl under his belt. And so I guess now we got to put up with this Rams background for the year.
Oh boy, yay! I'm so excited about that. It is better than the Manning pictures, though.
Well, the problem is Jeremy still has these Manning pictures up. So I'm hoping that this offseason we'll get some new pictures. He did throw a few new ones in here, but overall it still sucks pretty bad. So,
well, I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that.
I don't think that Dave cares. That's the problem. So then it moves us into the offseason. There we go. We got Ryan Tannehill picking his nose, just like a good Dolphins quarterback should. But it moves us into the offseason that all of us have been chomping at the bit to get into. And it's here. This is the most exciting, yet the most boring and longest time, all at the same time that there ever is. We got to have these slow-moving times as we build up to our draft on Monday night, which gives us a little plug for that. Our next show will actually be our Monday Night Live draft show. Hopefully we'll be able to keep everybody on, and you can come in here and chat. You can come in here and talk about your picks. We've got a great system set up. We're going to be able to really break down those picks as they happen live for you. May even have some live shots, some live look-ins from my PS4. As long as I'm not picking, I'll have it up. And so I'm excited about that. The draft show is going to be great. It'll be a good time. So let's just hop right in here. We got the re-signings. They were up first. We've got some no-touch free agents, just in case you've missed this. We are also in round 2 of free agency. So the ones that are left out there are Greg Olsen, Thomas DeCoud. They are both for the Panthers. If you have any bids on those, you need to remove those. The Bills have Glenn and Roby. Roby, actually, I bid on because the name wasn't right or something, and didn't look the same guy. So if you got any bids on these guys, remove them. And then, of course, the Rams, he swapped from an owner to a coach, and a couple of his guys got released. So you've got the kicker, who I'm not even going to try to say his name, wide receiver Brown, middle linebacker Bates, cornerback Kaysen. Please do not sign those. And then all of our favorite owner, 00, won a free pick in free agency. And for whatever reason, he took Greg Hardy, who was accidentally released from the Panthers. I don't know why you would need more defensive line help on that defensive line, but whatever. He took him. It's his. They're your do not touch free agents, just in case you missed any of those. What are your initial thoughts on free agency so far?
Well, so far it hadn't really been a big dip in the free agency. I kind of am curious to see how this Russell Wilson sweepstakes is going to come out. The Seahawks had to cut him during the offseason because they couldn't afford $25 million a year. So Wilson's out there in the free agent market commanding a $91 million contract over 6 years with $27.7 in bonus, and there's 3 teams currently vying for his services: the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Chargers.
It's crazy. We've had $100 million guy before, but he's definitely going to be a $100 million quarterback, which is absolutely. I don't understand it. I can't even wrap my brain around how he's going to be $100 million and how somebody's going to afford him. But you know what? More power to you. I need a quarterback. I'm not in that sweepstakes. I'm not wasting the money, especially with this game. In the Broncos, you got to think ahead. You got to think, if you're going to build a big team, you got to think ahead of time. You got to think about re-signing players as the season goes on. Whoever wins him, you're going to be in cap hell. He may be one of those players that gets released and is unsignable because he just is asking for too much money.
Well, I tend to agree with you, but this is the time of year where you find out who your owners that kind of pay attention to the numbers are. They may not necessarily do much in the wins and losses column, but the guys that can win here as far as planning out your cap, figuring out who you need to sign and who you should and who you shouldn't go after, even if you want to, that's the guys that can maybe turn around and win some games, especially in this Madden, where it seems like you can really get punished for a bad signing.
Absolutely. You have to be smart. I think sometimes all of us can kind of jump into um, that free agent bug. It bites you. You have a lot of cash. You think, oh, there's a player that I really want, and then you just go after it. And then a year or two down the road, you realize I'm in trouble here. I've got a bunch of very high-priced players. I'm going to have to rip this team apart. So it'll be interesting to see. I think, especially the way we play Madden and how many seasons we're getting out quickly, guys really have to start thinking about the future a little bit more than they have in the past. You're just playing 3 seasons, maybe not, but we're getting 5. We may even squeeze 6 in there. You're going to have to really think about the future of your team, as you are with the Broncos.
Yeah, I'm already looking ahead because I know Johnny Fisher, my first round pick from last year. That kid is going to command probably around Russell Wilson type money, and I want to keep him around in Denver. But I also am going to need to re-sign the halfback I just traded for, Jamon Ball, and I'm also going to have to re-sign 4 of my 5 offensive linemen. That I've got to work around now and basically kind of get some offensive linemen piece by piece, year by year. So that way, whenever Fisher comes due, I won't have to pay too many other folks.
So what we'll do is we'll just look at some quick re-signings and retired players and even some cuts that had to come. The Arizona Cardinals do re-sign Cromartie. That was kind of their biggest sign this past offseason. The Baltimore Ravens have Steve Smith retire on them. They do re-sign their quarterback who got some playing time in Beasley. The Panthers had some really big re-signings in Kuechly and Davis. That would have been another $100 million guy if Kuechly would have hit the free agent market. The Bears had a lot of players retire on them. Ed Reed, Eli Manning, Frank Gore. It's funny, they are actually going after Charles Woodson, so they must have an attraction to old guys who are going to be retiring. Cincinnati got some O-line there that they needed to re-sign. Donate Mock is also a really good linebacker that they re-signed. Cleveland had Jay Feely retire on them, but they did get some other really important re-signings there. Dallas Cowboys had Akeem Jordan re-sign with their team, but they did lose McKinnon, who retired. Chris Chester for the Broncos retired. But they did get Matt Prater back, which is going to be a big deal. The Lions do get Riola back. They get Barr and Jason Jones. Houston Texans had a couple retired, Chris Myers and Lecker. They do get Carl Nix back, though. That's going to be big for their offensive line. Isaac Sapaga, I don't even know how you say that. Whatever. They called he retires. Daniel Manning resigns. He's a really fast, strong safety for them. And then Jacksonville resigned a whole bunch of guys. They got a really young team. It'll be a fun team to watch as they progress here. The Chiefs also do a couple of re-signings there. Miami gets Ryan Tannehill back on a new contract. The Vikings bring back Akeem, their right tackle. Champ Bailey finally hangs it up. He hung in there with the Saints, but he calls it a career. They do get the speedster Joseph Morgan back. Ruben Randall sticks it out with the Giants. Wilkerson resigns with the Jets, so does Snead and Kyle Wilson. Those are some 3 big ones for them. The Raiders spend some of that cash that they have. They go out and re-sign a bunch of their players. Eric Pierce for Philadelphia retires, but Nick Foles comes on back along with Fletcher Cox and Kendricks. Those are some really big players for them. Steelers re-sign a lot of their players. The Chargers go on a re-signing spree, but they do lose Dwight Freeney and Peyton Manning. Good to see those 2 guys retire from the same team after playing together so long with the Colts. The 49ers, who make some big splashes in trades later on, they do bring back Vernon Davis, Chris Colliver, Alton Smith, and Andre Williams. Those were some big deals for them. The Rams had a couple of 6-year deals that were signed for them. But I think the computer did most of this for them when they swapped over. So I know he's working that out. Seahawks, who clearly are in cap hell, as they had to release a bunch of their key core pieces. They do get Wagner back and their left tackle. Chris Clements retires from Tampa Bay, but they get a lot of their other guys back. And then Washington rounds it out with Robert Griffin, Alfred Morris, Daryl Young, and Trent Williams. Those were 4 huge signings for their teams. I just lost a few, or just actually, these are the signings from the first round of free agency. Nothing big for me. Here's some big ones, though. Buffalo brings back C.J. Spiller, brings back Gilmore, brings back Bryce Brown, Jacob Tammy. Those are some big names for them. Anybody else that I'm just kind of looking at as we go here? Jared Allen was released, so was Marcus Pollard for the Bears, but Michael Vick signs up. I guess really Chicago must have something for old players. I personally don't like anyone to retire wearing my jersey. I want to get rid of them or get something for them, but the Chicago Bears will take your old and decrepit players anytime you need to get rid of them. It looks like Cincinnati went on a spinning spree as they try to turn things around for their team. Barry Cofield, was a big-time defensive tackle that was out there. Dallas Cowboys making room for their $100 million man that they're bidding on. They released Tony Romo and Jason Witten, Jerome Simpson. Those are some big players for them last year. They do bring in a new running back, and Andrew Hale, a white running back at that. Denver Broncos bring in a couple of players. They bring in the speedster LSH, Leroy Stevens Howling. And they also bring in Tony Romo to come in and back up the young player that they got in Johnny Fisher. Houston Texans signed a couple of players, and Jared Johnson's interesting quarterback that's out there. Jacksonville Jaguars bring in a few guys. Kansas City brings in a couple of old men, and Larry Fitzgerald and Brian Hoyer. I think Larry Fitzgerald's speed is up to 58 now this year. New England has to cut ties with Logan Maggins, and I thank them for that because I'm trying to bring him over to Arizona. But they do bring in a new kicker. The Saints bring in a new right tackle and center. Nothing else to really talk about. I like Paris Helson signing with the Raiders. That'll be interesting to see how that turns out for their team. Sorry, I was looking to see if anybody was joining us here. And Antonio Gates decided to hang it up. He's seen what the Chargers were going to look like this next year. Lewis just got off, so I can't really rub him too much. But Antonio Gates decided cutting his own grass would be better than playing football for the Chargers. So he has walked away. Do not be surprised if he comes back in another year and plays for somebody else. And other than that, there's not a ton. Ben Tate finds a new team. Ricardo Lockett, Adam Jones, those guys all take a walk. Not a whole lot to talk about the first week of free agency. Did anything stick out to you?
Not particularly. It's mostly guys, most of the mid to upper level guys, even the elite guys, they're going to wait until that last week to go ahead and choose a team, if they even choose a team. So not really a whole lot of surprises. I think the biggest thing is you see a lot of veterans, especially at halfback and wide receiver out there, mainly because they're about as fast as a turtle in molasses. The buyer beware on those guys. If you get them, you better get them for depth, and they better be buried deep on the depth chart.
Why don't you tell us about a few guys that are out there that are intriguing? They're asking for some big money, since you kind of have that fired up.
All right, let me get back in here right quick. I'd fiddle over the transaction screen, but
I know everybody else is tired of hearing me. So,
well, I am too, but I mean that's besides the point. A good pickup if you need a veteran quarterback, somebody that can still get it done. Phillip Rivers is still out there. He's only asking for $2.84 over 1 year with $960K as a bonus. So basically, for about $4 million for a year, you can get a quarterback that can still get it done. He's not the Phillip Rivers of 3 years ago, but I mean he can still get it done for you if you need him to. Halfback Marshawn Lynch has still got a little bit left in the tank. He's asking for $15.5 over 3 years with almost $6 million in bonus. He's not going to get that kind of money, I don't think. He's not going to get that contract length either. I think maybe a year, maybe two, but I think one would be your best bet if you're wanting to get Marshawn Lynch. Wide receiver wise, all the wide receivers that are up there, buyer beware because they are slow as dirt. I see somebody has a bid on Anquan Bolden, who I think I could probably outrun at a 40 backwards, blindfolded right now.
Which is saying a lot.
Yeah, that's saying a lot because I don't run anywhere. Tight end, I actually would not be surprised if somebody goes and sneaks on Jason Witten. And as I'm looking right now, I see the Chiefs actually have a bid for Jason Witten. Jason Witten still has a little left in the tank as a receiving tight end. He's not going to block anybody. He's not going to block anybody at all. And he's not going to burn past folks. But as a security blanket for maybe like Tyler Bray, that's actually not a bad fit for Jeremy and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
O-line wise, Logan Mankins is probably the biggest guy out there right now. He's not wanting a whole lot. He can still get it done for a year at 34 years old. He's still got some skill left. KO just cut him because the contract was just ridiculously high for him. I think he was paying him like $12 million this season, whereas you can get him right now for about $3 million. 3 teams are currently in the bid, or 5 teams are currently in the bid for that one. The top 3 are the Chiefs, Cardinals, and Cowboys, but the top 3 don't really matter. It's whoever feels like getting them at the end. Max Unger at center. He's 30 years old. He can still get it done. He's wanting a 4-year deal for about $8 million between bonus and contract money. He'll probably get maybe half of that, half years, half contract money. But he can still get it done for a year or 2. Let's see who else we've got here. Alex Boone is actually a guy that I think will probably make a good bit of bank. He's only 29 years old. If he gets on a team that has a world-class trainer, he could probably last at least 3 or 4 years. And the guy is super solid. I think he's like 86 run block, 86 pass block, 85 impact block. I mean, he's still got some talent left. He's not diminished in any way, shape, or form. So that's a good pickup for whoever goes after him. Let's see. On defensive line, there are a lot of older guys out there. I see Ray McDonald, who would fit a 3-4 scheme at left defensive end. He's out there and available, and the Falcons are currently the only team bidding on him. Defensive tackle, B.J. Raji is still out there who could still plug the nose tackle in a 3-4. He's a big fat guy. He can stay in there and hold the center gap. Greg Hardy, but that's a Lions exclusive bid, so nobody bid on him. John Abraham, I looked at him briefly. He really does not have anything to offer. He's rated as an 85 overall on here, and he wants $6 million a year, but he's not worth that.
Yeah, he's definitely not worth $6 million a year. I think he does have a little something to take as like a situational pass rusher. He's definitely not worth $6 million a year, but I think somebody's going to give him something and bring him in for a year stopgap.
Yeah, I could see that. A situational rusher, depending on what you already have at the top, or maybe somebody who could be a good quality backup, veteran leadership type of guy, that would be a good setup. At outside linebacker, I was really surprised to see Tamba Ali out there. He has lost a step, and he's wanting a 3-year contract on here. I don't see him getting a 3-year deal, but he definitely has at least 1 good year left in him, maybe 2. Right now, currently, the Falcons and the Browns are competing for all these services. And,
saying that he lost a step, though, taking -2 from 0 is still -2. So, losing a step when you're already slow is not a good thing.
Well, but the thing is, though, with outside rushers, he may not have a lot of speed, but he has good acceleration. And getting that quick first step as an outside pass rusher, that's really more key to anything than actual frontline speed. If I can't get past anybody by beating them off the ball, what's the point in having top-end speed if I can't get past you? As far as quarterbacks go, they pretty much fall into the same categories of wide receivers. Most of the ones that are not exclusive, like restricted free agents, have lost at least a step, if not 2. Leon Hall could still get it done at 31 years old, but you have to be real careful with him. He's in the mid-80s in speed right now, so you definitely don't want him trying to cover a burner like a Calvin Johnson or somebody. You don't want to leave him on an island by himself, but he can still get it done. Brandon Browner, another guy who never really had a step to begin with, but still a really tough physical cornerback. So if you need a nickel corner to maybe play some rush for you or tackle in the box for you, Brandon Browner could still get it done for a year doing that. Tramon Williams, a guy who used to be a real big burner, Not so much anymore. Still has great cover skills. He just doesn't have the athletic ability. And right now, that's all you really see up here is just guys that have lost their athletic ability. They still have the smarts. They just don't have the athletic ability.
Yeah, some of these cornerbacks have lost both legs.
Yeah, I can't argue with you on that point. Free safety. I feel sorry for the Falcons if they didn't do their homework. They're currently the only bidder on Eric Weddle, and I do believe I could run faster than Eric Weddle at this point. I believe he's at 72 speed on that. I think that's what his speed is. Still phenomenal cover guy. I mean, he's still a phenomenal player. Just he's slow as a turtle in molasses.
Yeah, as long as you don't run, he'll cover you.
Exactly. As long as you stay still, he's got you. But the minute you move, it's over with. A guy I actually kind of like at the strong safety spot, he's still got a year left in the tank. He has lost a couple of steps. I believe he's at 80 speed, but Troy Polamalu, in the right situation, I think that guy could be a one-year player. He's still got his intelligence. He's still got enough athletic ability to be marginally successful. He's not the Troy Polamalu of 31, 32 years of age. He's 35 now. But he definitely can still get it done in the right situation. Kickers, does it really matter? Do kickers really matter? I mean,
I don't think.
Okay, well, the kickers kick the ball, the punters punt the ball. So there you have it.
Let's take a quick look at a couple of big trades that I kind of picked out here. You got the Steelers and the Jaguars working a deal out that actually sends Lawrence Timmons, who I think was actually franchised last year, and Martavius Bryant over to Jacksonville for Cecil Sharts and a fourth-round pick. This was Cecil is a very fast receiver. Lawrence is a very good middle linebacker. This is just an interesting trade because both teams are taking some big cap hits. It looks like the Jags are shipping some of that offensive talent away to make that defense even stronger.
Well, I have some inside source on this one. I've been chatting with Norm throughout the offseason. He's been kind of asking me for little bits of advice and throwing me players and stuff. And this is the deal I actually really, really love because he's going to move Timmons out to outside linebacker. And if you look at Timmons, he can really get it done at the outside linebacker position in a 3-4. He's got two middle linebackers that are young that he really likes and he wants to keep and build around. That plus Timmons plus maybe somebody in the draft, the number 2 overall pick, he could have a whole new linebacking core that could really tear up some offenses next year. I really love it, and I love Martavis Bryant.
It's an interesting trade. It'll be fun to see how that comes out. Because Cecil can make plays and he can burn you. Next one up is going to be the Bears and the Buccaneers. The Bears are sending left guard Slauson, 88 overall, over to Tampa Bay as they rebuild that offensive line. And Tampa Bay sends over that first-round draft pick that was highly coveted. Even though he made the playoffs, the Bears were racking in some first-round draft picks. I don't know how that's going to work out for him, but he feels like he can give up an offensive lineman for that first rounder.
Well, the Bears owner is perplexing to me. I don't understand sometimes what he does, but apparently he must do something right because he wins games. I don't see how his mind works. I think he thinks it's fantasy football, but no one has told him otherwise yet.
Yeah, It's an interesting team, to say the least. Next up, you got the Saints and the Jaguars. Jaguars making some moves. The Saints send their first-round pick, 30th overall, so basically a high second-round pick. But they get Blackman from the Jaguars. Jaguars are taking some hits here. They're going to be up against that $20 million cap hit here pretty quickly. But the Saints add a huge piece to their team, and the Jaguars are shipping out all of these receivers. I hope they grab a couple in the draft.
Well, once again, I got inside information from the Jaguars owner, and I think he's enamored with his young wide receivers that he has on the bench right now, in the form of Marquise Lee, Allen Robinson, and Ace Sanders. And those guys, they're raw, they still need work, but they could form a really nice triple tandem threat with Blake Bortles and Robert Turbin and a rebuilt offensive line, because I know he's looking offensive line. I would assume he's probably going to do that with that draft pick in the low first round. But if you think about it, he's got 2 picks in the first 32. He's definitely going to get some talent there.
Yeah, and Blackman kind of fits that mold of replacing Colston because Colston's going to be leaving here soon. So it kind of gives him a younger version of Colston there. So interesting trade for Dave, and that'll be interesting to kind of see how that one works out. The next one up is going to be the Steelers and Lions. This one made some noise from a few players in the blast this week, but the Steelers send Le'Veon Bell, 24 years old, fast development, over for the old man Reggie Bush, who's losing a couple steps, but they also pick up a fourth rounder. They were really excited about adding Reggie. They get to add a draft pick that I know was important to them, and they send away a pretty young, fun running back to have, and the Lions add a really big piece to that offense.
I completely agree with you. I love Le'Veon Bell. If not for my trade with the Vikings to get Jamon Ball, I would have went hard for Le'Veon Bell. I think the kid is a stud in the making, even though he's not the fastest. He's not the most agile. He's not the most quick, but he's the complete package. He can catch out of the backfield. He can run over you. He can run around you. He can be elusive. I think he's the next Trent Richardson if he's developed properly. The problem is I don't know if 00 can do that.
Yeah, 00 also went hard and evidently stayed hard, and it's still hard for Le'Veon Bell himself. So it'll be another really interesting trade to see how that works out. Next up was you and I. We worked out a deal. You were dangling Vasquez out there all offseason, and I really have turned my attention to improving this offensive line. I've improved it vastly since I took over the team, but I also in season 1 traded for a bunch of players that needed some work but had the raw skills of strength that was already there, that didn't need work, just had to improve their pass and run blocking. And then I got slapped in the face with the fact that you just can't improve players the way you used to, and so it just didn't work out for me. I do love Cooper. I did not want to send that second round pick, but I felt like I was adding a tremendous piece of my offense that will be there until Madden is over, hoping he re-signs, especially since I gave up that future second-round pick. But you and I make a deal. You're taking a chance, but you're adding some huge pieces, especially if I suck it up against next year. You get that big second-round pick for next year. But this was a good deal for, I think, both of us. You're going to get a solid player in Cooper who can still play and open up holes. And I am taking my first steps to totally revamping this offensive line and getting some monsters in front of my quarterback and running back.
Yeah, and another thing on my end of it was this was part of the I need to watch out for Johnny Fisher when he comes due. I was paying Vasquez $7 million this year. I was worried he was going to ask for that much and more per year in the contract extension, and I honestly couldn't afford that. I just couldn't do it. So by getting rid of him now while the getting was good, I get a kid back that I like, that I can groom, and I get some picks that I can maybe pick up some offensive linemen or maybe other places of interest further down the road. So good win for both teams.
Yep, I agree. And then and I had picked up a couple extra second rounders anyway, so I kind of had some second rounds to deal with. I just had to come to terms with sending that future second rounder. But next up is going to be the Bears and the 49ers. This is kind of the trade that's been talked about for quite a while. Gaddy has been struggling to get into the show tonight. He's having some complications. I'm sure we'll hear about it when we get back on AOL or AIM. But they send away Kaepernick, and they get 2 first-round draft picks, the Bears and the Bucs. That's a high and a low. And the Bears add a very mobile quarterback that they feel is going to turn their team around and send them to the playoffs that they're trying to get to.
Well, I like the pick as a whole. I like the thought process. I really like what Gaddy did. It pains me to say that, but I think he made a really good move here. He's wanting to revamp his offense. He's wanting to go back to the Bill Walsh old school style of offense, run that West Coast style of offense, and Kaepernick does not fit that mold. What worries me about him going to the Bears is who is Kaepernick going to throw to? Because there are no wide receivers that are faster than, I don't know, a turtle that are currently in Chicago that I'm aware of. He's been in blast kind of asking about, I know 00 has been putting Calvin Johnson out there, but it'd take a king's ransom to get Calvin Johnson. He even inquired about Demaryius Thomas from me in private, and I told him he could take that and stick that where the sun don't shine. But without a top flight wide receiver or any wide receiver, I don't know what Kaepernick's going to do other than run for his life.
Yeah, and I don't know that you have the firepower to go out and get two huge splash players like that in free agency, and you've just dealt away all your draft picks, so you're not going to pick up one. His only bet's going to have to be to grab some receivers late in the draft and hope he can live with some low overall and hopefully for him some speedier receivers. That'll be it'll just be interesting to say the least how that one works out. Next one's up is going to be the Bucks and myself working out a deal. I picked up a second rounder from them. I picked up a center that I feel could play some guard if I need him to. He may stay at center. Just depends on how things work out in free agency for me. Kind of getting loaded at receiver if I do win some free agents. But I think he can move over. He can shoot over to guard and play some guard for you. And also pick up a tall, fairly speedy receiver that needs some work, but could be a decent slot guy. I'll send it over to him, an older veteran center that can back up for him. And, of course, Antonio Cromartie. We did not want to get rid of Antonio Cromartie. He has been extremely good player for us. But the fact is he's 32. And like I said earlier in the podcast, players just don't retire on my teams because I can't do it. I think in Madden, it's a waste if a player retires on you unless you just go out there and get a one-year stopgap. I could get something for him. I pick up a second-round pick, a receiver, and an offensive lineman. And you know what? I kind of get out from underneath that building that will crash one day. And the Bucks get to fill in a gap that they needed, and they bring in Antonio Cromartie to solidify that second unit for them.
Yeah, I can definitely understand, especially at the skill positions. You almost take a year-by-year chance on whether or not the guys will completely fall through the floor. I've seen guys at year one that, have guys that go from like 95, 96 speed to like 74. The Madden regression is ridiculous to say the least, but I feel like that's not a bad maneuver, even though Cromartie's still got plenty of skills. It's just how much does he have left in the tank? And like you said, strike while the iron's hot, get rid of them while they're getting good, and get what you can while you can.
Yep, I agree. I think it's a win-win for both teams, and we'll see how that works out for us. Next up is going to be you and the Seahawks, and the reason I bring this up is because they lose their quarterback. And I know that you really like Zach, but you got Johnny Fisher. You've kind of talked Zach up, and the Seahawks bit. And I like this trade. I really do. I made a comment in Blast. I like both their trades that they made with you and the Colts. People thought I was just being a butt, but it really wasn't. I really like both these trades because neither one cost them a lot. This one cost them a fifth. I think the other one cost them a fourth. And they bring in two players who have some skills that need to be worked on, but it didn't cost them an arm and a leg to get those players on their team. So I really like this deal for the Seahawks and for you. You get to pick up some extra draft picks.
Well, the big thing for me, and I told you this whenever we talked, if not for Johnny Fisher and him falling into my lap, Zach Dysert was going to be the starting quarterback. I had that much faith in him that he could succeed Manning in that regard. But when you pick up Johnny Fisher, who has the skills that he had, he wowed me in training camp. He wowed me in preseason, and he went 11-5 as the Broncos started this season. That's pretty much all you really need to say. So Dysert really, he's in the last year of his deal. I wanted to get some kind of value out of him. If I didn't, I would just use him as a backup. But now he goes to a team where he actually has a chance to start, and I think he'll have some success. I really do. I think Junior, if he builds him up and develops him right, I think he can have success with Zach Dysert. I think he can be a success down the road. And I do like that trade he made with the Colts for Roy Halou. Halou's got a lot of speed, and he's got a lot of ability to catch out of the backfield and give him a nice complimentary back to whoever he decides to replace Marshawn Lynch with. I know he's got a tag out there, I believe, for Mike James. I don't know if he signed him in one free agency, but Mike James was the guy that scouted for him and helped him out with. That's a guy that he's not going to weigh with much speed. I believe his speed was like 86, but he had a lot of trucking and run-over capability. He was similar to Marshawn Lynch. Obviously not as good, but he's similar to Marshawn Lynch in build and type. And him and Halou, if he gets James and Halou could be a really nice 1-2 punch for him for not a lot of money.
Yep, I agree with you. The last deal that we're going to look at is actually you and the Vikings, another big splash deal that was made and stirred up a lot of people in chat the other night. But you sent a first-round selection, number 20 overall, for Jamon Ball, who I think was a first-round selection for the Vikings last year. So they eat a little cap hit there, but you get a very fast running or a very young running back to go on a very young team who are making splashes, and you kind of get your running back to finish off Madden here.
Yeah, for the most part, I do. We talked about it during the off season, and I actually was hankering more for his kid Terrell Sims. He was smart. He didn't let me have him, and I'm okay with that. I got my consolation prize, so to speak, in Jamon Ball, but Jamon Ball basically is going to take over for Arian Foster. Arian Foster regressed during the off season. I owed him $9 million on the last year of a deal. I got my one good year out of him from Emo. I appreciate that, Emo. But it was time to move on from Arian Foster. He had dropped a little bit. I couldn't justify paying him $9 million for the stats he had. So with the trade for Jamon Ball in place already, it was no brainer to cut Foster. And we get Jamon Ball in here. We get him behind this offensive line, and I expect a lot of success with him and Fisher.
So there you have it. That is a look at your free agents. That looks a good look at your trades, a look at the playoffs and how things went. Why don't you give us a quick rundown on maybe your top 5 draft prospects that you're looking at out there as we kind of wrap up the show with that?
Top 5 draft prospects. Well, the big guy on the board is the Aurel Sims, the middle linebacker. I know he's projected to go number 1 overall. However, I know who's picking number 1, so I don't see that happening. With Stang having the number 1 pick, I think he goes offense, and I can see him going for the kid that won the Heisman Trophy. I think he gets Cortez Miles out of Tennessee with the first overall pick. The second pick, Jacksonville. If they stay put, I've heard talk they may consider trading the pick, but I doubt they do. I think they stay put and they finish that linebacking core off strong. I think they pick up the kid Wendell Poe, left outside linebacker out of Oklahoma. Big, strong kid. The kid can do it all, but he likes to kill quarterbacks. For the third pick, I believe that is Atlanta. I could see them going in a couple of different directions. It's a new owner, so it's kind of a hard thing to gauge. But I think he'll probably build defense because it's linebacker university. I see him taking Aurel Sims with the third pick and being quite happy that he fell to 3. The kid out of Tennessee. At 4, I'm not sure who has the 4th overall pick. Do you have that in front of you?
I do not. I can let's see how quickly I can get this up for you. I probably should have had that for you. We got to do a little bit more preparing here, but we're all kind of caught up.
I just want to say that this afternoon I did ask you to do a little, thing for the show, and someone did not do it. I'm just
you did, and I completely failed as a human being. You got Washington at number 4, Minnesota at number 5.
Okay, Washington is an interesting pickup. Our boy Clavin is apparently going to stick with us, which I'm super stoked about. I'm glad he's going to stick it out. I'm glad he's here. However, I don't know what he'd take. So he's got a rack toe at right end, so he doesn't really need defensive. Wide receivers are already off the board. Top 3 linebackers are off the board. I could see him go and maybe reach a little bit, maybe go for, say, a free safety. Kid Ibrahim Powell out of Pittsburgh, 6'2", 193. He plays in the zone blitz 3-4 scheme. He'll be a good fit for Washington in that zone blitz 3-4. He's got a little bit of skills in everything. He can run a little bit. He can tackle a little bit. He can cover a little bit. And that'll shore up that because I know they picked up a strong safety last year. I believe Jay Samuel was his name. And that kid had a phenomenal rookie year. I think you pair up Ibrahim Powell with him in the backfield, and suddenly that secondary is a little bit more formidable. And rounding it out is Minnesota with the number 5 selection. They're not going to go linebacker. I mean, they're not going to go quarterback. I could see them probably either going tight end. I see them going tight end. I think they take the top 10. They take Jorge Reina out of Auburn. Big kid, vertical threat. He can run past just about anybody. He's not going to block anybody, though. He doesn't get his hands dirty. But he will definitely outrun most anybody you put in front of him short of a cornerback. And he's a big, wide body at 6'4", 263, so he can definitely box out and take care of those linebackers and safeties over the middle as a security blanket. So that's, I think, how the top 5 would roll out right at this point.
All right, well, there you go. We'll find out on Monday, which will actually be our next show as we do a live show. We'll actually see if we can't fire it up maybe a little bit early. We'll see what time they actually plan on doing that. You and I will talk with W. Dunn. We'll see if we can't get out here early, maybe do some, maybe even if it'd be nice to do a first round mock draft. We got your first 5, so it'd be fun to go back and see if we can't finish out all 32. Before I wrap up the show, let's go ahead and cover this draft already. You got Miami, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Washington, Minnesota. 1 through 5, like Wynn just gave you his mock. Then 6 through 10 is going to be Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Dallas, Detroit, Chicago. These are all before any trades. Then you got Philly, Cleveland, Tennessee, San Diego, Baltimore. That's 11 through 15. Then 16 through 20 is going to be Carolina, Arizona, Seattle, Buffalo, Denver. 21 through 24 is going to be Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, New England. New York Giants are going to be 25. 26 through 30 is going to be San Fran, Oakland, Houston, New Orleans, Kansas City. Then the Jets and St. Louis are going to round out your round 1. It's going to be a fun draft. I'm super excited about it. I think you and I and W. Dunn's got some great stuff prepared. It's going to be the drafts are always a lot of fun. There's a lot of people on. There's a lot of action. A lot of people super excited. And then the preseason kicks off immediately that night, and games start rolling in. And before you know it, we'll blink, and it'll be week 1 podcast recap to start doing and going through and looking at some games.
Yeah, it's always a fun time to draft. I enjoy that time. It takes 2.5 hours, but it doesn't seem like it's 2.5 hours, if that makes any sense. Just you roll by, you're chatting with folks, and suddenly your pick is up, and you're panicking because you got 2 minutes to make a pick, or a minute and a half, or whatever it is for the late rounds, and you're just like, oh crud, who's still on my board? But you know what? It's an enjoyable. I enjoy that part of it. The draft for me is the most fun part of this process of off season and Madden in general. I enjoy the off season more than anybody, I believe, just about. It's the games that take away the enjoyment. But that's another time for the topic. I love the draft. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll be able to get together and do a live show.
Yeah, it's going to be great. There'll definitely be a live show. Hopefully we get a lot of people on, get some call-ins of people talking about their picks and what they like, what they didn't like, and what kind of they were looking for their team. We'll get a Buckman's big board before the draft starts, so go ahead and prepare for that. We love it when we hear from Buckman and his big board and his draft analysis, and it's just going to be a fun night. Dunn's going to be in here. The commission will probably hopefully hop in here a little bit, maybe even get Jeremy and Dave. We'll get Mustang in here. We'll get a lot of people in here. We'll get some call-ins. It'll be a fun night. I'm looking forward to it. It's just going to be a good night. So there you have it. That is your off-season and post-season outlook from this past year. We got a year officially behind us. The second season is in the books, and we're going to move on to the third season. I'm telling you, we're going to blink, and it will be week 1 before we know it. So Wynn, I appreciate you being on the show and co-hosting with me, and W. Dunn for quietly typing and listening. And Lewis, thanks for hopping on and listening to us. It's been a good show, and I'm super excited. And it's a good
international.
It is. Made us international. We are worldwide. We're taking over. OMFL everywhere. So there you have it. That's another show. It's in the books. Fellas, thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to get this thrown out there, get it on YouTube so everybody else can listen and watch. And D-Money, your banner is on the way. Peace out, fellas.